You think you know why your favorite cast members walked away from Mrs. Brown's Boys. But the real story? It is nothing like what you have been told. Some left with tears and heavy hearts. One left in a legal battle so explosive it shook the entire show to its core. And one quietly disappeared without a single goodbye, and nobody in the production said a single word about it. Today, we are pulling back the curtain on the real reasons these actors left one of the most beloved and most watched shows in British and Irish television history. And trust me, by the time we get to the last one, your jaw is going to hit the floor. Now, before we get into the exits, let us quickly set the stage, because unless you understand just how big the show really was, you will never truly grasp why these departures hurt as much as they did. Mrs. Brown's Boys did not begin on television. It did not start with a big BBC budget or a polished production team. It started on tiny, modest Irish stages in the early 1990s, born entirely from the imagination of a struggling stand-up comedian named Brendan O'Carroll. He created a character called Agnes Brown, a loud, loving, gloriously foul-mouthed Dublin mother, who somehow kept her completely chaotic family together through sheer stubbornness, fierce loyalty, and an enormous heart. The twist that nobody saw coming? Brendan ended up playing her himself. And not by design either. The original actress did not show up for a performance one night, so Brendan threw on a dress, slapped on a wig, walked out onto that stage, and something truly magical happened. The audience lost their minds. For nearly 20 years, the show lived and breathed on stage, slowly building one of the most devoted and passionate followings in comedy history. Working-class Irish and British audiences packed every venue because they saw their own families reflected in the Brown household. Just louder, messier, more chaotic, and 10 times funnier. Then in 2011, BBC One took a chance and brought it to television. The critics sharpened their knives immediately. They called it outdated, cheap, juvenile, and unsophisticated. But the audience did not care what the critics thought. Not even a little bit. Christmas specials broke viewing records year after year. Live tours sold out enormous arenas across the UK, Ireland, and Australia. Merchandise flew off the shelves. There was even a feature film in 2014 that critics dismissed, and audiences went to see anyway. Brendan O'Carroll had not simply created a funny character. He had built a full comedy empire that millions of people genuinely loved. And at the heart of that empire was something rare and beautiful. A cast made almost entirely of real family members and lifelong close friends. Brendan's wife, Jennifer, played his daughter on screen. His real son, Danny, played another son. His actual daughter, Fiona, played a daughter-in-law. His sister appeared as the beloved neighbor next door. This was not just a television show. It was a family reunion filmed in front of a live audience every single week. And that closeness, that warmth, that genuine love between the people on screen, that is exactly what made every departure hit so devastatingly hard. Let us start with the first major exit that left fans genuinely stunned. Fiona O'Carroll played Maria Brown, the calm, kind, deeply grounded daughter-in-law and long-suffering wife of Dermot. On a show absolutely bursting with over-the-top personalities, outrageous one-liners, and slapstick chaos, Maria was the one real human being standing in the middle of it all. She was the character audiences could actually see themselves in. When something ridiculous happened, and something ridiculous happened every single episode, Maria reacted the way a normal person would. Confused, exhausted, quietly horrified. That was her gift to the show, and it was more valuable than people realized until she was gone. What made this departure cut so deeply was the fact that Fiona was not just a cast member. She was Brendan's real daughter. She had been part of the Mrs. Brown universe since the very beginning, long before the television lights, long before the global tours, long before any of the fame. She grew up with this show. She watched it transform from small Irish stage plays into a cultural phenomenon that millions of people talked about at Christmas dinner every year. So when Fiona announced in 2022 that she would not be joining the live stage tour, the fan base genuinely did not see it coming. But here's the part that surprised everyone most. There was absolutely no drama attached to her departure. No argument. No screaming match behind the scenes. No fallout with her famous father. Fiona simply looked at her life honestly and said enough. She had spent over a decade playing someone else's story, and she felt the deep, unmistakable pull to go and write her own. She was in her 40s. She was a mother. She had a whole life waiting outside the walls of the Brown household, and she finally decided it was time to walk toward it. Brendan's response was everything you would hope a father would say. He told the press that she was his daughter first and Maria second, and that he admired her completely for knowing what she needed. Their relationship remained as close and warm as it had always been. But her absence on screen? That was felt by every single person watching. Without Maria's steady, grounded presence, the show tilted just a little further into pure madness, and fans noticed it almost immediately. Now, if Fiona's exit made people emotional, what Rory Cowan did in 2017 absolutely shattered them. Rory played Rory Brown, Agnes's glamorous, flamboyant, wonderfully sharp-tongued son, and he was, without any question, the electric pulse of the entire show. His energy was unlike anything else on screen. The banter between his character and Agnes crackled with a chemistry that you simply cannot manufacture in a writer's room. It had to be felt, and Rory felt it in every single scene. Interestingly, Rory had not even started out as an actor. He had been working behind the scenes as Brendan's publicist, helping promote the early stage shows across Ireland. When the role of Rory Brown needed filling, Brendan offered it to him almost as a temporary solution. Nobody expected him to become the soul of the show. But the moment audiences saw him, that bleached hair, that infectious laugh, that absolutely unbeatable comic timing, they fell completely in love. So why did he walk away from something so beloved, something so clearly successful? The answer is one of the most quietly devastating stories in the entire history of the show. For years, long years of filming and touring and performing, Rory had been caring for his aging mother at home. While the cameras rolled and the audiences cheered and the show kept growing bigger and bigger, Rory was carrying a private weight that very few people around him fully understood. The exhausting schedule, the constant travel, the time away from home, all of it pressed down on him. When his mother eventually passed away, something shifted inside him that could not be shifted back. He looked at his life honestly and realized that the joy that had once powered every single performance had been quietly replaced by something far heavier: grief, burnout, a deep, aching emptiness where laughter used to live. He later admitted openly that he had been genuinely sad on the show for quite some time before he finally made the decision to leave. He was not angry at Brendan. He loved the cast dearly. He loved the fans with everything he had. He simply was not the same person anymore, and rather than keep performing a happiness he no longer felt, he chose to walk away with honesty and dignity. The role was eventually recast, but the audience never truly accepted the replacement. Some chemistry is so specific, so personal, so completely tied to one individual, that no amount of talent can recreate it. Rory Cowan's Rory Brown was one of those irreplaceable things. But if those two exits left fans heartbroken, nothing, and we mean absolutely nothing, prepared the Mrs. Brown's Boys fanbase for what was about to happen with Gary Hollywood. Gary played Dino Doyle, the fabulous, sharp-tongued, impeccably dressed hairdresser and Rory's devoted on-screen partner. He had been with the show since the very earliest TV specials, and his presence on screen was magnetic. Dino could walk into any scene and steal it completely without even appearing to try. His friendship with Rory, his gloriously chaotic exchanges with Agnes, his effortless comic confidence, all of it added a warmth, a color, and a brightness to the show that felt like something you could never replace once it was gone. And for years, Gary showed up, delivered, and gave the role everything he had. Then came 2020, and Dino simply vanished. No farewell episode. No heartfelt goodbye scene. No on-screen explanation of any kind. He was just gone from the Christmas and New Year specials, and the audience immediately started asking questions. As the real story slowly came to light, it became clear that this was not a quiet, dignified, personal decision like Fiona's or a grief-driven exit like Rory's. This was a full-blown conflict that exploded into public view and dragged the show's carefully maintained family image straight through the mud. Gary alleged that he and another cast member were being paid significantly less money than the rest of the cast for those 2020 specials. When he raised the issue and asked for a fair conversation about it, he claims the response from the production was not understanding or compromise. It was removal. He was out. Done. No discussion. Gary described the experience as a complete blindside and said the thing that hurt most was not losing the job itself. It was the deep sense of betrayal from a production that had always told the world it treated its people like family. He filed legal claims of unfair dismissal, discrimination, and unequal pay. The story exploded across newspapers and entertainment news in Ireland and the UK. Suddenly, Mrs. Brown's Boys was not just a beloved sitcom about a funny Irish mother. It was the subject of a very real, very ugly, very public legal drama. Brendan denied the claims firmly, calling the whole situation a misunderstanding. But no matter whose version of events you believed, the damage to the show's reputation was real and lasting. Dino Doyle was gone, and no replacement ever arrived. The character simply ceased to exist, and with him went an irreplaceable piece of what made the show so special. And then there is the story of Damien McKiernan, the man who perhaps suffered the most quietly of anyone in this entire tale. Damien stepped in to replace Rory Cowan after his 2017 departure, and the weight of that task was enormous from the very first day. He was a former Mr. Ireland with limited acting experience, and he was being handed one of the most beloved characters in a show that millions of people held deeply close to their hearts. His version of Rory Brown was noticeably different from Cowan's original, quieter, more reserved, less explosive. Many fans struggled to warm to the change, and the comparisons were relentless and unforgiving. But Damien kept showing up. He worked hard. He stayed professional. He kept his head down through all the criticism and slowly, gradually, began to earn a small but real place in the show's world. Some viewers started to soften. Some even began to appreciate what he brought on his own terms. And then 2020 happened. Damien reportedly found himself entangled in the very same pay dispute that destroyed Gary Hollywood's time on the show. According to reports, both men discovered that what they were being paid for those Christmas and New Year specials was dramatically lower than what other cast members were receiving. When the issue was raised, the fallout was swift and silent. Damien disappeared from the cast without a farewell scene, without an explanation, without any acknowledgement that he had ever been there at all. For a man who had already spent years fighting uphill against a fan base, still grieving his predecessor, it was a painful and completely undignified ending to a chapter that deserved far better. He had taken an impossible job, worked through impossible pressure, and been quietly shown the door when he dared to ask a reasonable question. In many ways, his story is the one that says the most, not just about what happened behind the scenes at Mrs. Brown's Boys, but about how even the most beloved shows can treat their people when nobody is watching. What all of these stories share is a truth that the laughter and the live audiences and the Christmas specials were never quite able to hide. When a show builds its entire identity around the idea of family, it sets a standard. And when cast members start disappearing one by one, some with grace, some with tears, some with lawyers, people start to wonder whether the family on screen was ever quite as real as the one they believed in. Some of these exits were handled with love and honesty. Others were handled in ways that still sting. But every single one of them changed Mrs. Brown's Boys in ways that no amount of new storylines or recast characters could fully repair. So now we want to hear from you. Which of these departures affected you the most? Was it Fiona's quiet, dignified goodbye? Rory's deeply personal decision to choose his own peace? Gary's explosive legal exit that nobody saw coming? Or Damien's invisible disappearance that the show never even bothered to explain? Drop your answer in the comments right now. We genuinely read every single one. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. Subscribe so you never miss a story like this one. And click on one of the videos appearing on your screen right now, because what is coming next is going to surprise you even more than this did.